Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy. Teilhard de Chardin, part 19, in which we'll continue reading Teilhard de Chardin. I was, if you were wondering about the expression on my face just then, I fiddled with the instruments a little bit and hopefully resolved that issue where for the past, 5 episodes of Chicken Philosophy, various books, the sound has been a little much. In other words, when I got loud, it would sound kind of, it would sound kind of like too much. It'd sound distorted in an unpleasant way, and I'm hoping I fixed that. And then just as I was starting this episode, the rain picked up, so that's fun. It's in today's episode we're going to pick up where somebody left off last time, the Trent Reznor episode of Teilhard de Chardin. So, we were in the middle of a section. This is part 3 of the Divine Milieu. And it's entitled The Divine Milieu, and I hope that you can hear me. I know that you can hear the rain. I don't think I'm going to put any music today. We'll just let the rain be the background music, and hopefully you can hear me. Here we go. But the fact that all the external springs of the world should be coordinated and harmonized at that privileged point is not the only marvel. By a complementary marvel, the man who abandons himself to the divine milieu feels his inward powers clearly directed and vastly expanded by it, with a sureness which enables him to avoid, like child's play, the reefs on which mystical ardor has so often floundered. In the first place, the sojourner in the divine milieu is not a pantheist. I, just as a side note, at various points in my life, looking at all the different things there are to be, have identified myself either as a pantheist or a panentheist. If I'm not mistaken, pantheist is basically everything is God. Panentheist is everything is God and then some. That there's more than just the physical universe and that extra stuff that we don't know about, or that maybe some are able to catch glimpses of, that's also God. So okay, let's keep reading and see what Teilhard de Chardin says differentiates the sojourner in the divine milieu from a pantheist. And I'll set aside my personal biases and prejudices. At first sight, perhaps, the depths of the divine which St. Paul reveals to us seem to resemble the fascinating domains unfolded before our eyes by monistic philosophies or religions. In fact, they are very different, far more reassuring to our minds, far more comforting to our hearts. Pantheism seduces us by its vistas of perfect universal union. But ultimately, if it were true, it would give us only union. What? Only fusion and unconsciousness. All right? For at the end of the evolution it claims to reveal, the elements of the world vanish in the God they create, or by which they are absorbed. Our God, on the contrary, pushes to the furthest possible limit the differentiation among the creatures he concentrates within himself. At the peak of their adherence to him, The elect also discover in him the consummation of their individual fulfillment. Christianity alone, therefore, saves, with the rights of thought, the essential aspiration of all mysticism, to be united, parentheses, that is, to become the other, end parentheses, while remaining one's self. More attractive than any world gods, with a capital G. Interesting when plural God is capitalized, since I had always learned that if it's plural, it must be lowercase. Whose eternal seduction it embraces, transcends, and purifies, in omnibus omnia, Deus, parentheses, en pasi panta theos, end parentheses. It's nice that in the midst of the Latin that he's not going to translate, he added some parenthetical Latin that he's not going to translate. Any Latin scholars? Feel free to comment below, because I'm not going to make Editor Edward run around translating Latin for us. Our divine milieu is at the antipodes, the antipodes of false pantheism. It's the opposite of pantheism, which he's calling false. Okay. I'll keep an open mind as I read this. The Christian can plunge himself into it wholeheartedly without the risk of finding himself one day a monist. Nor is there any reason to fear that in abandoning himself to those deep waters he will lose his foothold in revelation and in life, and become either unrealistic in the object of his worship, or else chimerical in the substance of his work. The Christian lost within the divine layers will not find his mind subject to the forbidden distortions that go to make the modernist or the Illuminati both in quotes, modernist and Illuminati. So, all right, let's add a third definition of Illuminati. There's the original definition, which was, it was some kind of secret Bavarian society in the 1700s, right? And then it died out. The second definition is it's a global conspiracy that it touches everything, it's behind everything, it's the eye of the pyramid, and they want you to have vaccines with microchips. There's a third definition, is it's those assholes on Instagram, right? And a fourth definition is whatever Teilhard de Chardin means. And perhaps in context we will learn about that fourth definition for Illuminati. Okay. To the Christian's sensitized vision, it is true. The Creator, and more specifically the Redeemer, parentheses, as we shall see, end parentheses, have steeped themselves in all things and penetrated all things. Trent Reznor going, I want to do something that matters. Right? Sorry. Penetrated all things to such a degree that, as Blessed Angela of Foligno said, quote, the world is full of God, end quote. But this augmentation is only valuable in his eyes insofar as the light in which everything seems to him bathed radiates from a historical center and is transmitted along a traditional, solidly defined axis. The immense enchantment of the divine milieu owes all its value in the long run to the human divine contract which was revealed at the Epiphany of Jesus. If you suppress the historical reality of Christ, The divine omnipresence which intoxicates us becomes, like all the other dreams of metaphysics, uncertain. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Vague, conventional, lacking the decisive experimental verification by which to impose itself on our minds, and without the moral authority to assimilate our lives into it. Thenceforward, however, dazzling the expansions which we shall try in a moment to discern in the resurrected Christ, their beauty and their stuff of reality will always remain inseparable from the tangible and verifiable truth of the gospel event. Yeah. Well, you know, what are you going to do? Let's keep reading. Right, yeah, all right. The mystical Christ, the universal Christ of St. Paul, has neither meaning nor value in our eyes except as an expansion of the Christ who was born of Mary and who died on the cross. The former essentially draws his fundamental quality of undeniability and concreteness from the latter. However far we may be drawn into the divine spaces opened up to us by Christian mysticism, we never depart from the Jesus of the Gospels. On the contrary, we feel a growing need to enfold ourselves ever more firmly within his human truth. We are not, therefore, modernist in the condemned sense of the word, nor shall we end up among the visionaries and the, quote, Illuminati. Okay. End quote. What would a 1950s French Jesuit have meant by Illuminati is the question. All right. The real error of the visionaries is to confuse the different planes of the world and consequently to mix up their activities. In the view of the visionary, the divine presence illuminates not only the heart of things, but tends to invade their surface, and hence to do away with their exacting but salutary reality. The gradual maturing of immediate causes, the determinate systems of material order in their complex interrelationships, the infinite susceptibilities of the universal order no longer count. Through this veil without seam and these delicate threads, divine action is imagined as appearing naked and without order. And then the falsely miraculous comes to discount and obstruct the human effort. As we have already abundantly shown, the effect produced upon human activity by the true transformation of the world in Jesus Christ is utterly different. At the heart of the divine milieu, as the Church reveals it, things are transfigured, but from within. What? At the heart of the divine milieu, as the Church reveals it, things are transfigured, but from within. Okay. They bathe inwardly in light, but in this incandescence they retain this is not strong enough. They exalt all that is most specific in their attributes. Italics. We can only lose ourselves in God by prolonging the most individual characteristics of beings far beyond themselves. End italics. That is the fundamental rule by which we can always distinguish the true mystic from his counterfeits. The heart of God is boundless. Multe mansiones. At many mansions? Yeah. And yet, in all that immensity, there is only one possible place for each one of us at any given moment. The one we are led to by unflagging fidelity to the natural and supernatural duties of life. At this point, we can reach at the right moment only if we exert the maximum effort on every plane. God will reveal himself in all his plenitude. Except at this point, the divine milieu, although it may still enfold us, exists only incompletely, or not at all, for us. Thus, its great waters do not call us to defeat, but to perpetual struggle, to breast their floods. Their energy awaits and provokes our energy, just as on certain days the sea lights up only as the ship's prow or the swimmer cleaves its surface. So the world is lit up with God only when reacting to our impetus. When God desires ultimately to subject and unite the Christian to him, either by ecstasy or by death, it is as though he bears him away stiffened by love. Stiffened by love. And by obedience in the full extent of his effort. It might thenceforward look as though the believer in the divine milieu were falling back into the errors of a pagan naturalism. What? Yeah. In reaction against the excesses of quietism and Illuminism. All right. With his faith in the heavenly value of human endeavor, by his expectation of a new awakening of the faculties of adoration dormant in the world, by his respect for the spiritual powers still latent in matter, the Christian may often bear a striking resemblance to the worshippers of the earth. I mean, I like to think that Teilhard de Chardin, in writing this book, he's like actually writing to the other Jesuit brethren in his order. He's writing to, the staff members of the Vatican, trying to see how far he can push them without them recoiling and reacting and calling him evil and stuff like that. I like to think that. Maybe not. I don't know. He might also be covering his ass so he doesn't get kicked out for, saying, and it's the one true and literal interpretation of the gospel and nothing else. Nobody else is invited to the great divine party except for the people who believe that Joshua ben Joseph 2024 years ago, or in his day 1950 years ago, literally walked the earth. Not saying he didn't. I'm not even saying I don't believe that. What I'm saying is it's unnecessarily polarized. More about that later or earlier. Where were we? Yes. Yeah. But here again, as in the case of pantheism, the resemblance is only external, and, italics, such as is so often found in opposite things. And italics, the pagan loves the earth in order to enjoy it and confine himself within it. The Christian in order to make it purer and draw from it the strength to escape from it. The pagan seeks to espouse sensible things so as to extract delight from them. Would you like to live deliciously? Sorry, stupid movie, by the way. I was so frustrated by that movie. It was like an accurate depiction of my ancestors, especially on my maternal grandmother's side. And then at the end, just pure stupidity. But the rest of the movie was like a very kind of troubling, but I think accurate picture of how certain people were in that place and time. Never mind. What? Yes, live deliciously. Where was I? Somewhere. Yes, he adheres to the world. The Christian multiplies his contracts with the world only so as to harness or to submit to the energies which he will take back or which will take him to heaven. He pre-adheres to God. I mean, Anything that I could criticize about Teilhard de Chardin's definition of a Christian would also apply to a Buddhist. Just say it. The pagan holds that man divinizes himself by closing in upon himself. The final act of, just that specific part about escaping the earth and all that. The pagan holds that man divinizes himself by closing in upon himself. The final act of human evolution is when the individual, or the totality, constitutes itself within itself. The Christian sees his divinization only as the assimilation by an parentheses, quote, other, end quote, of his achievement. The culmination of life, in his eyes, is death in union. Are we getting somewhere? To the pagan, universal reality exists only insofar as it is projected onto the plane of the perceptible. It is immediate and multiple. The Christian makes use of exactly the same elements, but he prolongs them along their common axis, which links them to God. And by the same token, the universe is thus unified for him, although it is only attainable at the final center of its consummation. To sum up, one may say that in relation to all the main historical forms assumed by the human religious spirit, Christian mysticism extracts all that is sweetest and strongest, circulating in all the human mysticisms, though without absorbing their evil or suspect elements. It must be nice to live in Teilhard de Chardin's head, as opposed to the world as it is. Sorry, I'll keep my snide remarks to myself. It's nice when people paint a picture that you can kind of, oh yeah, they do, don't they? Unless you look at them, unless you talk to one, even him, including him, when you read, why do you have the need to, and this is the out group, and this is why they're fucked, and this is why we don't agree with them. Anybody who has a slightly different perspective than Roman Catholicism isn't going to get there, and neither are you unless you accept my really kind of out there, weird, unusual interpretation of it all. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is, God, he's almost got it. He's so close to just but he's trying to squeeze it into, sorry. It's good. It's different. It's interesting. It's thought-provoking. But some of the thoughts it provokes are, it is what it is. All right. To sum up, one may say that in relation to all the main historical forms assumed, it shows an astonishing equilibrium between the active and the passive, between possession of the world and its renunciation. Between a taste for things and an indifference to them. But there is really no reason why we should be astonished by this shifting harmony, for it is not the natural and spontaneous reaction of the soul to the stimulus of a milieu, which is exactly, by nature and grace, the one in which that soul is made to live and drop itself. Question mark? What? Where's the beginning of that sentence? Let me just because that's a big sentence, let me try. Okay. But there is really no reason why we should be astonished by this shifting harmony. For is it, there it is, not the natural and spontaneous reaction of the soul to the stimulus of the milieu, which is exactly by nature and grace the one in which that soul is made to live and develop itself? That is a question, isn't it? Just as at the center of the divine milieu, all the sounds of created being are fused, without being confused. Did that rhyme in the original French? In a single note which dominates and sustains them. Parentheses, that seraphatic note, no doubt, which bewitched St. Francis. End parentheses. So all the powers of the soul begin to resound in response to its call. And these multiple tones in their turn compose themselves into a single, ineffably simple vibration, in which all the spiritual nuances of love and of intellect, of zeal and of tranquility, of fullness and of ecstasy, of passion and of indifference, of assimilation and of surrender, of rest and of motion, are born and pass and shine forth according to the times and their circumstances, like the countless possibilities of an inward attitude, inexpressible and unique. Not the end of the section. There's like 4 more paragraphs, but that is where I'm going to close the reading today. And there was something that I wanted to mention, and I did mention it. You remember back at the beginning of this episode, you noticed a little blip, a little edit? Well, Editor Edward, would you please take the stuff that was edited out in the beginning and put it right here? But I just wanted to mention, for those who saw the previous episode, the Carl Jung Part 48, I know that it seems like I'm... Oh, speaking of which, I've forgotten something. It may appear to the eye that I am simply a person putting on different outfits and pretending that they're different people or different personas. And, you know, on a certain level that's true. But on another level it's less true. It's also true to say that they're all aspects of one person. But basically, to cut short, I wanted to address one thing from Gwydion's recital yesterday. Yeah, speaking of polarization, there we go. How do you feel about that one? Comment below. Yeah, my thoughts are that one's a bit nationalistic for my personal taste. And, you know, generally, if somebody put a gun to my head and made me choose between that and, say, a very, like, pro, you know, IDF, pro-army, nationalistic bumper sticker from the opposing rival football team, I would, yeah, if I had to choose one, or my family would die, you know, then obviously that's the one that I would choose. However, I would like to add to the assemblage of bumper stickers, of the chicken philosophy bumper stickers, I would like to humbly submit this, which I created back in 2001 or so. And obviously, it refers not just to Jerusalem in particular, not just the old city, not just the new city, but the region as a whole. And, you know, similarly, I could emotionally, you know, get behind if somebody had a bumper sticker talking about, you know, America belongs to the First Nations peoples. They were here first. This is their land, and everyone from Europe or wherever should go back where they came from. I could say, yeah, and it would be about as unrealistic as the way that most people interpret the bumper sticker that Gwydion showed. Not that I wouldn't be in favor of, you know, the oppressors withdrawing from certain regions and allowing autonomy and, you know, some kind of two-state solution. The thing is, I don't think one government versus another is, you know, it is what it is, but it's not it's not going to work. I mean, I'm not an expert in the field, and of all the experts in the field, nobody has a viable solution as far as I can tell. So I'm not like armchair, being one of those armchair like Twitter type or X or whatever, weighing in with my majestic, all too, out of proportion valued opinion. What I'm saying is, it's more about something like that. This, I think, is a step up from this, but this is a step in the right direction. And if, that's enough about that. I think that this is a good symbol. There are 3 major world religions that all have a sacred, sentimental attachment to that bit of real estate in the world. And it would be nice if they could play nice together instead of arguing about who was there first or who's been there the longest, and therefore who should have exclusive right to it and the others should get the fuck out. I don't think that that's going to be any kind of solution. No, not that I don't know if there will ever be a solution. But, my team should get it and the other team should get the fuck out is definitely not a solution. And that's kind of the general interpretation of, the Free Palestine bumper sticker. And there was a bit from back in October of 2023 in the Arbatel series, and I'm just going to ask Editor Edward to splice that in here. I think in both cases you have a regime on one side, colonialist regime, and a lot of European folk and others who aren't European. And then on the other hand, you have another regime. And those 2 regimes are both murdering civilians. I can't fly either flag right now because then it would be mistaken for supporting one of the regimes, and I don't support either. But what I do support is not killing innocent people. All right. And finally, I'm going to ask Editor Edward to do one more thing. Could you take that whole bit that I did at the beginning, before I started reading, and put it at the end? Because I would like for this episode to be about the reading of Teilhard de Chardin and have that as a side note reserved for the few folk who make it all the way through the reading. Yeah, there it is. There it was. And it was moved to here for mentioned reasons. Reasons already mentioned by me half an hour ago, or just now. I'm so confused. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm doing well. It's raining here. And Buddhist Books podcast has been pretty boring lately. The episodes that end in 5 and the episodes that end in 0 are good. But getting there is the problem. Because the part that we're reading right now is like legal code. I mean, it's really as dry as like reading, like, if the person who's making the agreement were to walk through the door before the bell, then the bell should be rung a second time after they sit down. Everyone should stand and then sit down. But if they walk through the door as the bell is ringing, then this is, I mean, that's not exactly what's happening, but it's that level of dryness. It's ancient Buddhist scripture from over 2,000 years ago, which is the reason why I'm reading it, as opposed to like reading present-day legal code. But it is just as boring. And that's why I generally, for a while there we were alternating. And then I think I've done 4 chicken philosophy episodes since the last Buddhist Books episode. And I'm going to get back to it. I mean, I'm going to do one episode of Buddhist books. If you are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, do please click through to this channel and subscribe to it. It's similar to this, except I'm reading Buddhist scripture, and by I mean Pymander. He doesn't call himself Pymander on that channel. He calls himself Edward. Someone has to be Pymander. Years ago on Gwydion's Astral podcast, which is related to Gwydion's Astral Coffee House, which I just pointed at, Pymander was the synthesis of Edward, Gwydion, and BT. And but just for the sake of, practical, just for the sake of it, for the heck of it. In fact, here's a clip from, this was a video called The Round Table on Gwydion's Astral Coffee House last year. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Edward. I produce a podcast.
Okay, well, I mean, you're Pymander, though, right?
Sure, I can be Pymander. That's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah, because he's Edward. It'd get confusing if you were also Edward.
A rose by any other name, right?
Yeah. So that's what happened. There was the name Pymander was assigned to the Buddhist monk robe wearing me, which is actually the present day me. This is me from 10 years ago and more. But honored and in a Jungian sense, like allowed to express itself, because it's not like it's gone, that earlier me. There's an inner child in you, right? Still wants to go out and play ball with their friends or whatever, and sometimes it's good to honor that by expressing it, to let it out, to live it, rather than always being like, no, I am an adult. When I was a child, I did childish things, but now I am grown and I have left childish things behind. Thank you, St. Paul. All right, anyway, that's the episode's long enough. I'm just rambling and not really saying anything now. So I will wish you a wonderful day. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. And, whatnot. And may Adonai bless, never mind.